welcome back to a very busy day here in Cleveland. And there is Ivanka Trump along with her husband, Jared Kushner. They are doing their walkthrough at the Q earlier. This is them as they are leaving. We saw Ivanka there with her dad, Donald Trump, formally accepting the nomination of the GOP party as their nominee for president. Ivanka Trump has the honors of introducing her father tonight. It is a big day, and we have seen all week how the Trump family, the siblings, the children of Donald Trump, played a really important part in the convention evenings. We know that also friends and supporters have also played a very important role in the convention evenings. One of those people joins us right now. He is the former two-term mayor of New York City, who is also a Donald Trump supporter, Rudy Giuliani. He spoke at the convention on Monday night. Mr. Mayor, it was a fiery speech, and it was well received. You got the crowd on their feet that evening. Last night, though, I'm sure you probably witnessed Senator Ted Cruz and the speech that he delivered. It didn't go over so well with those folks in the queue. But what do you think about reaction to it? Did Senator Cruz do himself a disservice, or ultimately really end up helping Donald Trump?
Well, I think he did both. I think he did himself a disservice by breaking his word. After all, he made a promise that he would support the winner of the Republican primary, as Donald Trump did and the others. And your word is your bond in politics, and when you get the reputation of breaking it, and Ted Cruz already has a bad reputation in the Senate among his colleagues, I think he did himself very, very serious damage. And I think Donald Trump, by allowing him to speak and not overreacting to it, has shown himself the bigger man.
And Mr. Mayor, when it comes to party unity, though, the effort Donald Trump has to give tonight, what is your recommendation? Have you talked to him about his speech and what he needs to deliver to undecided voters out there?
I have at times given him thoughts about it, yes. But I don't see the unity of the party or the disunity of the party as the real big issue here. I don't see this as a typical election of left against right, Republican against Democrat. I think this is insider against outsider. Hillary is the quintessential Washington insider. Donald Trump is the quintessential Washington outsider. And I think he has to speak to the American people, not just Republicans. He should be reaching out to independents and Democrats who are dissatisfied with Washington and saying Hillary Clinton is, 30 years of Washington. And she's more of the same. And I'm a reformer. I'm going to change the way we negotiate our agreements. I'm going to change our tax code. I'm going to change the way in which we deal with Islamic terrorism. I'm going to change the way we handle these police situations. I'm an agent of change. I'm a guy from the outside. I represent all of you who are dissatisfied with Washington. And Hillary is Washington being funded to the tune of $1 billion by all the special interests who pull all the strings. That's where I see this election coming down, and that's why I don't think Ted Cruz's role really means very much, because he comes from that left-right kind of politics, and he's far right.
And Mr. Barron, it seems one thing about this campaign and this election cycle, things get highly personal really quickly about the different candidates that are in play. You were at the New York delegation this morning, and you brought up some distinctions about, what makes Donald Trump the best man for the job, and also personal things about Hillary Clinton that might discredit her for the job. I just want to play those remarks for everybody at home. And also, Senator Al Franken was on with my colleague Andrea Mitchell, and he had an opportunity to hear your words and respond to them. Take a look.
Bill Clinton, our predator president, with his wife, who enabled him, aided him, covered up for him, and headed the bimbo squad.
There's a guy who's been perfect in the area of women. This is the ugliest convention I've ever seen. And it's really an extension of the candidate, of the nominee.
Mr. Mayor, what do you say to those that look at the convention and have a criticism that it may not offer a positive message for voters?
How can you not criticize a woman who claims to be a feminist and wants to defend women who are victims, except the women who are victims of her husband, whose reputations she participated in destroying. To me, she's a phony. And for Al Franken to be shocked by it is ridiculous, because he knows there was a bimbo squad in the '92 election. Just watch the movie Primary Colors, and you can find out all about it. I'm not making that up. What I was pointing out is that Hillary Clinton has a history going back to her dealings with the Rose Law Firm in Arkansas, up through the hundreds of millions of dollars they took in for the Clinton Foundation, of being dishonest and dishonorable. She's also been found
there, for Mr. Trump, trying to attract the female vote, and for women out there who might be undecided. I mean, do you think that you paint or characterize women in a really broad brush as you talk about Hillary Clinton?
I didn't characterize women in a broad brush. I characterized a woman who was running for president with a very narrow brush. Very few women would do what Hillary Clinton did. Very few women would attack Monica Lewinsky for 3 or 4 months when it turned out that Monica Lewinsky was quite correct and her husband had, in fact, taken advantage of her. Very few women would do that. And to pose as a feminist and to say that you care about women who are victims makes you, in my view, a phony.
So for Mr. Trump tonight, do you think that he's going to go down that personal line of attack against Hillary Clinton, drawing distinctions?
I don't think he has to. I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays positive. But I sure as heck am not going to keep my mouth shut and see a person that I believe belongs in jail become president of the United States. I put people in jail for 10% of what Hillary Clinton did with her emails. And I put people in jail for 10% of what she and her husband did with the Clinton Foundation, the improper calls to the Internal Revenue Service, the turning over of nuclear material to Russia, things where Bill Clinton was getting millions of a $1.2 million speaking fee from UBS when Hillary Clinton calls the IRS and tells the IRS to go easy on UBS when she was Secretary of State. I put a congressman in jail for doing something like that for only $40,000. This was $1.2 million. So, I'm a prosecutor, a United States attorney, an associate attorney general. I've convicted 1,000 mafia members, Boesky, Milken. I know crime. And, with my last breath, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent a person who should be in jail becoming president. If I did 1/10 of what Hillary Clinton did, I'd be in jail.
So do you think that the Department of Justice and Loretta Lynch and Comey and everybody that put her through the paces, 11 and a half hours in front of Trey Gowdy for the Benghazi committee, who do you think is clearing the brush out of the way for someone that you feel deserves to be behind bars? Because until she's taken before a court of law and someone says guilty, she's innocent. And as a prosecutor, as someone who knows the law and what to do with crime, you recognize someone is innocent until proven guilty.
Well, the reality is that 64% of the American people agree with me. They believe she should have been indicted. And when the director of the FBI determined that she was extremely careless with national security information, that violates 18 United States Code Section 791, which makes it a crime to be grossly negligent in the handling of national security material. She was grossly negligent with handling tens of thousands of pieces of such material. I've seen people go to jail for much less than that. Whether you're convicted or not, I think you would. I think I convicted people on 20% of the evidence that exists against Hillary Clinton. And there are
any wrongdoing, and they have moved on from this with the fact that the DOJ is not going to be bringing charges, which is based on the FBI's investigation.
That's because there's one standard for the Clintons, and there's another standard for everyone else. And all of you in the media help that. They've had one standard. They've gotten away with so much, it's absurd. And the FBI concluded when they decided she was extremely careless at handling national security information that she violated federal law. And by the way, the FBI is not supposed to make that decision. The Justice Department did, and Loretta Lynch, because of her improper conversation with Bill Clinton, had to punt. So this was handled horribly. And it was a disgrace to the Department of Justice the way this case was mishandled.
And Mr. Barron, let me talk to you about this before we go, because it's gotten a lot of headlines since your speech. But you talked about the Black Lives Matter issue and all lives matter and blue lives matter with your speech the other night. But you did talk about the shootings of black males in the country during that speech. I just want to remind everybody what you said.
We reach out our arms with understanding and compassion to those who have lost loved ones because of police shootings, some justified, some unjustified. Those that are unjustified must be punished. Those that are justified, we must apologize to.
So, Mr. Mayor, I want to ask you, who do you think in the shootings do you believe, which of those shootings do you believe are just unjustified?
Well, I put police officer, 4 police officers in prison for, wasn't a shooting, but it was a terrible, perverted act in which a police officer shoved a baton up the backside of a African-American. That police officer is now sitting in jail for 25 years. I've also convicted a police officer for shooting a Latino youngster unjustifiably. And when I was a U.S. attorney and assistant U.S. attorney, I prosecuted and put 70 police officers in prison. So you're not talking to somebody that thinks that police should get away with doing anything illegal. In fact, I think it's worse when they do because they hurt legitimate police. But when you have a situation like you have in Baltimore now with this district attorney who is prosecuting all these police officers who are being acquitted, I think one of them by an African-American judge.
Yeah, well, they've been acquitted by Barry Williams, who is a judge overseeing this. These people in the Freddie Gray case, after the death of Freddie Gray in police custody, 6 officers have been charged in connection with this. One, it was a hung jury. The others have chosen to go through the bench trial route with Barry Williams, and they have been acquitted. We have 2 more trials coming up. But when it comes to Black Lives Matter, you made a statement about it. You feel it's inherently racist as an organization. Do you still feel that way?
Well, I think when you make distinctions like Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, sure, you're creating, I don't know, you're certainly creating racial divisions. When it
comes to police shootings, the Washington Post has a real-time database, and they're tracking, police fatalities. They started it in 2015. Of the people that were shot by on-duty police officers and killed, 732 were white, 381 were black. But when they do the makeup of what the percentages of African Americans to white people in the country, white people make up roughly 62% of the U.S. population, but only 49% of those are killed by police officers. African Americans account for 24% of the fatally shot by police, and they're just 13% of the U.S. population. So do you understand that the Black Lives Matter organization is saying that there's an overuse of police force when it comes to a certain minority that needs to be examined, and that's why they say Black Lives Matter?
Let me make 2 points. First of all, your comparison is erroneous. The comparison has to be to the number of crimes that are committed by people in that community. In New York, African Americans commit approximately 70
across the nation, Mr. Mayor. This is not, specific, and it's not about a crime stat. This is about fatalities, about those that have been in altercations with police and shot and killed. And there's a disproportionate number of African American people that have been killed by police.
There's also a disproportionate number of African Americans who commit crime for underlying reasons that we should be doing something about, like a terrible school system. Lack of opportunities for jobs, which the Obama administration has done nothing about. A school system that should have charter schools and choice that the Democratic Party is afraid to do anything about.
But as
So
someone
that
who
is a
understands
very
the justice system and supports police, you know, and they suit up every day to protect all of us. It's a part of our social contract, you know, with ourselves
But
here
also-
in America.
also,
and we pay taxpayer money to arm them. I think that all of us need to feel like we can trust them. Do you think, though, that Black Lives Matter is making a difference when it comes to drawing the priority necessary to talk about police overreach and fatalities?
If I saw Black Lives Matter give as much attention to all the black youngsters and others who are being killed in Chicago, something like 1 or 2 a day, then I'd have a lot more respect for them. Then I'd say they're really worried about black lives and saving black lives rather than trying to blame everything on the police. And then I would join with them. Look, I saved more black lives as mayor of New York City than Black Lives Matter has ever saved. I reduced the murder in the black community by something like 70%. And then Mayor Bloomberg got it up to 85%. Between the two of us, we probably saved 7,000 or 8,000 black lives. And not only that, I completely changed Harlem. I completely changed Bedford-Stuyvesant. I didn't leave conditions like Baltimore. Had I been mayor of Baltimore, Baltimore wouldn't be the way it is now. It'd be very, very different. So I worked very hard to save black lives. But not just the ones that are shot by the police, but the 99% of the others who were shot by other people, very often other blacks.
Former Mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani. I got to leave it there because we've got new reporting about Senator Ted Cruz that I got to get to. But, sir, thanks for your time and your candor. I appreciate it. We are going to have some new information. Our Hallie Jackson catching up with the